joining in, they can catch us on YouTube if they missed anything. So we're going to jump right in, guys. John, thank you for joining us on the Half Guard Half Hour. Founder of Tap Cancer Out, John Thomas, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure.
Awesome, buddy. So with that being said, I'm going to jump right in. Tell us a little bit about John outside of the foundation, outside of the tournament. Tell us a little bit about how John got his start in the world of jiu-jitsu.
Oh boy. Okay, so I started jiu-jitsu in 2000, oh my God, 11, I guess. It was that summer. So I went through high school and college. Like volleyball was my sport. I didn't find it till high school. I played like every other sport, but I played volleyball, played that through high school and college, pretty competitively. But after college, it was increasingly hard to play that anymore. And so I tried like getting on softball teams and stuff, but like I just wasn't really finding what I wanted in terms of like competition and something that I could still like compete in, that was a sport, but would also keep me in shape, because I didn't want to like play softball and then also go to the gym, and like, can't I just like find something where it all is sort of together? And especially difficult with volleyball, you need not only do you need like 6 or 7 guys, they have to play very specific positions. You can't just grab any six or seven people. You need to find like 2 middle hitters and a setter, and it's a whole thing. And they always flake and all that jazz. So I wanted a sport where I could compete, like where there's actually tournaments, but I only needed to sign myself on the dotted line. I didn't need anybody else. I didn't need a coach. I didn't need anything. But it was still a sport where I could not only stay in shape, but it's still a team. It's a team atmosphere. You have teammates. There's sort of like a team brand for whatever your gym is. And so it was sort of the best of both worlds. I had a team and all that team camaraderie and friendship and that sort of stuff, and sort of learning a new skill and staying in shape. But when it came to competition time, I didn't really need my team to be there. It's great if they are. It's great if you have a coach there. But there are plenty of tournaments that I just went by myself because I had that itch to compete. I wanted to get it in, and nobody else that weekend wanted to, so whatever. So yeah, I just sort of stuck with it. I'm a black belt now. I got my black belt 2 years ago, I think. 2 years ago, and I'm not anything special in terms of jiu-jitsu. I'm literally like, when they say a black belt is a white belt that never quit, like that's just me. I just never stopped going. I never had a major injury. I never stayed out of jiu-jitsu more than like 2 weeks, like if I went on a vacation or something. And even when I was on vacation, I would try and find somewhere to compete. So like I never missed a great deal of time. I just like kept going to class, and I wasn't like a 6 time a weeker. I was like 2 to 3 times a week, and that was it. I had a full-time job. When I first started Tap Cancer Out, when I first started jiu-jitsu, I was not even married yet. So wait a minute, was I married? No.
I don't think you want your wife to hear
No, I'm sorry. I said 2011. Well, the math wasn't adding up. It was 2008 because I started like 2 months before my wedding. And I remember my wife, 2 weeks leading up to the wedding, she was like, "You're not allowed to do jiu-jitsu because I don't want you having like a broken nose or black eye or whatever. Like, you look good enough right now. No jiu-jitsu until we come back from the honeymoon." So I was like, okay. But now, fast forward however many years later, I'm not only have a wife, but I have 2 kids. I've always had like a full-time career. So jiu-jitsu, I love to compete, but I never had any dreams of like being a world champion or anything. I was just very much a hobbyist in jiu-jitsu, and just sort of loved how I could get a workout in, have teammates, and still compete. So, and I just sort of never quit. And that's sort of my jiu-jitsu journey. Yeah, I have some wins, many losses, and some gold medals, and some first-round exits, and whatever.
Yeah, I think we definitely all have done that journey. And it's so funny because my wife had I was a blue belt or a purple belt when we got married, and she knew what she was getting into. And so we kind of had that same conversation, like the week of the wedding, like you're not allowed to train, like
Yeah,
we don't want photos with black eyes, broken noses, same story. So I just
exactly.
I thought it was kind of funny, but she knew what she was getting into, and I trained like quietly. I don't think she even knows this, like the day before the wedding. So
Tisk tisk.
I luckily got away with that. So let's, you're black belt now. Fast forward,
Hmm.
tell us a little bit about the foundation. Tell us a little
Yep.
bit about the tournament. I'm sad to say, me and some of the teammates that I have and the people that I train and where I teach, we were going to come up for the one
The
that
Connecticut one.
recently just got
Hmm.
canceled. Yeah, the Connecticut one. So tell us a little bit about the background of the foundation and the
Sure.
tournament. What got you started in that, and what brought you specifically, I guess, instead of, backing something else, why cancer research, why cancer foundations, things of that nature?
Yeah, so it was in 2010 when I first came up with the idea for Tap Cancer Out. So I actually have a friend that started an organization out in San Diego, and at the time it was called Stay Classy, and it was a number of different things. It was all sort of in the nonprofit space. They first started with just like events and pub crawls and sort of a mission to get young people involved in philanthropic endeavors because it's sort of hard. It's typically like a thing you do when you're older and wealthier and whatever, but how do you get like 20 somethings involved in not only donating, but fundraising, and how do you do it in a fun way? But it eventually evolved into a software company, and it's a product that we have used since day one and we still use now. It's our whole fundraising platform. But they actually brilliantly hosted an event called the Classy Awards. And it's basically, it's just like the Emmys or the Tonys or whatever, the Oscar, all that type of like pomp and circumstance around awards. They wanted to apply it to the nonprofit and philanthropic space, that like we should be celebrating the people who are changing the world just as much as we celebrate someone who got paid $10 million to act in the movie. So I went out there just to support them. Actually, I used to work in advertising for quite some time, and I was able to boondoggle my ad agency into sponsoring the event. So I flew out there with another friend of mine, and we were just expecting to like have a great time at this black tie event, get all dressed up. And I started listening to what everyone was saying when they were on stage, accepting the awards and such. And man, it was crazy what these people were doing with their lives and what they've sacrificed to do it. A lot of people sacrifice very lucrative careers to make an impact. And you're hearing about these, people who are military veterans who use their expertise to react and respond to areas, hit by natural disasters and anything like that. And I started feeling very uneasy because I was not doing anything to make the world a better place. Nothing. Maybe I would donate here and there if one of my friends was doing like a fundraiser or something, but I wasn't really doing anything. So I challenged myself in that moment to come up with some sort of idea. I was very passionate about Jiu Jitsu. I was a blue belt at the time. And very passionate about cancer. I lost my nephew, who's diagnosed at 3 months old with leukemia, and he passed away at 8 months old. So that was very difficult for our family, and I felt very, very helpless. And I remember that helpless feeling, sort of thinking like, not only did I not help him, there was nothing I could do, but like I haven't made any effort to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else. Like I played no role in his fight. I didn't support it in any way other than, thoughts and prayers. So I told myself that I was going to come up with an idea and combine my passion for jiu-jitsu with my hatred for cancer. Came up with a name right there. It was originally Tap Out Cancer, but a certain brand had a problem with that, so we switched it to Tap Cancer Out. But I told my buddy the idea, and he's like, "I love it, dude. I'm 100% on board. Yes, let's do it." He's now one of our board member, always has been, Pat Walsh. So from that moment, I I just set off to figure out what Tap Cancer Out would be or what it would become. I really didn't have a business. I didn't have a business model at all. I had a name, and that was it. And I was like, okay, so like, what do we do? Do we like sell merchandise? Like, why would people donate to us? And then when they donate, where does our money go? There was a lot of sort of figuring out, but I just figure I was gonna fail fast and have a lot of stops and starts, and we did. So we create the logo, we make some T-shirts, try to sell them. That doesn't really work. Try to reach out to tournament organizers to just let us set up a table and sort of sell some merch and raise a little bit of money and maybe collect some donations. And even that was difficult. The tournament organizers didn't really, they hadn't heard of us. They didn't know how legit we were. I mean, we applied for our 501c3 pretty quickly, and that's a long process, but we did get it. So, it was just really difficult to find our footing and to figure out like how we were going to make an impact. And eventually, after having a lot of issues with, glomming on to other tournaments, my instructor said, why don't you just host your own tournament? He's like, I've done it before. I'll help you. I've got the scoreboards and whatever. I'll get you referees. I'll help however I can. I train out of American Top Team in Connecticut. My instructor is Luigi Mondelli. And I said, why not? It's worth a shot. Everything else we've tried has failed. So let's do it. And I had actually run a half marathon for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. They have a program called Team in Training, and you commit to raising a certain amount. I committed to $1,000, and so did my wife. In return, they pay for your entry to the race. They get you a hotel room the night before, a team dinner the night before. They have all these other resources like to actually train. There's people you can train with and stuff. We didn't really do that, but there's just a lot of sort of perks for your fundraising commitment. And I thought, why can't I apply that to jiu-jitsu, especially because jiu-jitsu is very cost prohibitive. So if I give somebody a fundraising goal, that's fairly nominal, and it started as $250 and still is $250.
Yeah, no, I think that's the greatest part of your tournament.
Yeah, so
well,
they can compete for free, right? But they can compete for free, and that's like massive because not a lot of people can afford to compete jiu-jitsu regularly, especially at $70, $80, $90, $100 a pop. So to compete for free, that's awesome. And it takes a little bit of pressure off of you in terms of like, God, I don't want to lose like immediately and waste all this money, all this weight cut, like everything. So, and then I just sort of added on to that, so 400 gets you a fundraiser tee, 600 gets you this, that, and the other thing, 1,000, 2,000, now 10,000. And so we did that. And luckily, because I had the contact at Classy, we were able to get on their platform and use that. It was very clunky. They had to register one place, go to the fundraising page, set up a fundraising page somewhere else. It was a horrible user experience, but it was our first time. We borrowed wrestling mats from the high school that we used. I hand wrote the brackets. It wasn't a nightmare. It actually went a lot better than I thought it would. We started 40 minutes late, but once we started, it went really well. So it was absolutely like best case scenario. But we've come a very long way since then in terms of how well organized our events are. But I set out. I hoped to raise $5,000 at that first tournament. Ultimately, we raised $17,000, and so I was like, okay, we have a business model. And then the next year rolls around, everybody asks to do it again. So we do it again. Because I knew I wanted to do this more often, we bought mats. So by the second tournament, we already had our own mats, like a 6-ring, 2,400 square foot setup. And then we added a tournament in Massachusetts. And then basically every year we started adding on a new city. So then it was San Diego, which was its whole own bag of problems. But we figured it out, and then we added Philly, we did Buffalo, actually. So we just kept adding it on to the point where I didn't have any more vacation time to add more events. And, the events were getting bigger and bigger, and you'd raise 20,000, and then you raise 50,000, and then you raise 100,000, and then you're raising 200,000, and then the other events are doing the same thing, so they're going up and up and up. And so that's sort of what pushed me 2 years ago to make this my full-time job. So I'm actually just about to come up on my 2-year anniversary as a full-time Tap Cancer Out employee. So once we sort of had that model, we were able to turn it into a nationwide sort of tour.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. So, you talked a little bit about before you used to be in advertising.
Yeah.
How do you feel that career has helped propel Tap Cancer out? And on a funny side note, I always wondered why you didn't call it the other way around, the Tap Out Cancer. Thank you for explaining that.
No problem.
But but why? What from your advertising career? How do you feel that's helped
Sure.
you with the tournament so far?
Shout out to my friend Tyler, who I saw just join a little while ago. Hopefully he's still on, but I worked with him at an ad agency. So it's been very helpful. We very much take this brand first approach to our tournament. If you just think about like jiu-jitsu brands in general, and especially about tournaments, the marketing aspect is very much lacking, I believe. And so we sort of flipped it on its head and said, from day one, we were going to be very precious about our brand, the way it looks. Like our first logo was very sort of cliche jiu-jitsu-y with like sort of grunge and like whatever. I was very quick to say, to get away from that. And, like we want to be sort of the positive aspects of jiu-jitsu and not negative aspects of whether, perceived or true or whatever, we want to show people like what jiu-jitsu is truly about. So we're always positive. All of our everything we do is high quality. So not just our tournaments, but like every bit of merchandise needs to be very high quality. I'm wearing our fundraiser shirt from this year, but it's like a long sleeve hoodie tee thing. But like the discussions we have over just choosing what brand, like what style, what brand, everything, like we think about it often because it's a super important aspect of our business because it all has to boil down to trust. People have to trust us that we are going to do the right thing with their money. If someone's going to give us, however, $25, $250, $1,000, $25,000, they're not going to do it if they don't think we're going to use it properly or effectively or whatever. So it was very important that we do a lot of brand storytelling, that we're very transparent, that, everybody sees very deeply into my life and who we are. And like, other than, I don't show my kids a lot, but other than that, like everybody knows everything about me. My wife is now a full-time employee. So, we do a lot of behind the scenes, us in the office, and I want people to know who we are. The IBJJF is like the complete opposite. They have great events, mind you. I competed in Masters Worlds, and it was like just the greatest competitive experience I've ever had. But who runs the IBJJF? I don't know. Who knows? Even when
Who
you're
knows?
at the tournament, you can't figure out who is running the tournament. There's a lot of people sitting on the inside of the stanchions facing away from you. They're facing the mats. You can't talk to them. You don't know. I mean, other than like the ring coordinators, you can tell they're just hired for $100 a day and don't know anything about what's going on except like what's going on at their ring. It's this very like, don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. This is the almighty
The Wizard of
IBJJF.
Oz.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. And I said, and that's not to say that like they are hosting bad events or whatever. They obviously have a business model that work. They're making money hand over fist, but we want it to be something totally different because we had to be, very transparent and trustworthy and all of those things. So we've always paid very close attention to that. And so like our events, one of the things, when you hear charity, and this was the biggest fear. So what sport other than jiu-jitsu have you played?
I actually have never played any sport. Jiu-jitsu honestly was my first sport. I mean, as a kid I played flag football.
Okay, all right. So if you hear that there's going to be like a charity flag football event, do you think it's good? Like, what do you think it's going to be? Do you think these ballers are going to be showing up and it's going to be like high
No,
level?
it's gonna be
Like,
local. It's gonna be local
right.
kids.
Your dad's going to be the referee. Like,
Yeah.
and it's the same. Like people, when they ask. So my wife was a real collegiate volleyball. I played like fake club volleyball. She played, she went to Loyola on a full ride. And like, so if there's a backyard volleyball game going on, she doesn't want to be a part of it because she's at a higher level than that. And so when people hear charity jiu-jitsu tournament, I don't want them to think that means lowest common denominator, like everything that our first tournament was, borrowed mats, like pushing my teammates out on the mat to ref. Like, it's not that at all. We're very particular about who our staff is, who our volunteers are, who our referees are. Like, one of the first things I did was take that off of my plate because I don't know how to referee, number one. I don't know who these referees are, number two. So we've had a variety of head referees, but I always wanted a head referee to take that off of my plate because they're the ones who know the referee, know the rules, who are going to be out there reffing, because I want that to be super high quality. Like our equipment, everything that we use, we were one of, if not the first tournament to start using SmoothComp, which is the registration and bracketing software. We don't use the registration part of it because of our whole fundraising thing, but now, like Naga, Grappling Industries, basically any tournament that's worth a damn in the States uses SmoothComp, as they should, because it's a fantastic product. And actually, SmoothComp reached out to me and said, hey, and they're like European dudes, like Sweden or something. And like, they're like, hey, we have this product. I think you'd like it. You can use it for free if you want. And I get a lot of like vendor emails, people wanting me to use their products, and usually not for free. But so I almost deleted it. And then I was like, wait a minute, SmoothComp. Let me look into this. And I looked into it and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, because one of the crazy things is there's not a lot of bracketing software out there. Most tournaments used to just like repurpose wrestling bracketing software and stuff like Strong Von, and it's just, there was nothing made for jiu-jitsu. We started working with a company originally that had their own proprietary software that they literally, a husband and wife, like coded themselves, but we had to always hire them if we wanted to use it. I eventually wanted to get something that like I could use, and so then I could hire my own staff to use it, and that sort of thing. So like all of that is super important to us to make sure that people understand that our product, whether that be the tournament you're competing in or the t-shirt that you're buying or the rash guard that we released today, like everything is going to be high quality because we are an organization that stands for like quality and trustworthiness and all that sort of stuff, so that ultimately they believe in us, that we're going to put their money to good use. And I believe we have. And we're also super transparent about where our money is going, how much of it is going there, what exactly is being done when it gets there, like who our beneficiaries are, all of that sort of stuff. So
yeah, no, it's great. I actually was able to jump on earlier, and I was watching you. You started a live video where you were packaging up some merch. And you had your phone set up, and you don't really, again, to your point earlier, you don't see that like at IBJJF. You don't see them like sending out the emails or packaging up the merch or doing whatever. And like to watch you do that earlier today, and which is one of the many reasons why I wanted to talk to you and interview you, was because I know it's such a family business, and it's basically family run. And I've known, one of my teammates worked your tournaments for a little bit. And I knew nothing but good things about you. And I know in this time of COVID and everything being shut down and locked down left and right, how has that really impacted the foundation? How has that impacted you overall? And, what can people really do in this time if we can't get together and do tournaments and charity raise for tournaments? Are there anything else you guys are doing where people can get involved?
Yeah, so this was actually something that I don't want to say preparing for, because I should have been more prepared. If we were preparing, I would be prepared, and we were not prepared. But it was something that myself and my board were talking about sort of this time last year, about like having a reserve and stuff for what we call the black swan moment. But the thing about our business model was that, it's pretty bulletproof. Jiu-jitsu is not going anywhere, with all of this, COVID stuff. Jiu-jitsu tournaments are only getting bigger and more desire. I mean, there's more competition, but that's fine with me. I'm okay getting pushed in that way. I'd rather have more competition than seeing tournament organizations falling off because people don't want to compete for some reason. So, I was a little naive in thinking like, there's really, what could like, I mean, other than like a scandal inside of our organization, like what could knock us out? Like what could stop us? Like this business model is foolproof. I know exactly like how many competitors I'll have for every tournament. I know exactly how much every fundraiser is going to raise on average. Like we have all of this data from years and years and years. So I know that the average donation is going to be this, the average fundraiser is going to be this. Multiply that by the number of competitors that we expect. They have all our projections, and then the end of the year, it's usually around there, if not better. So, we talked about it, but, I was like, oh yeah, we'll build a reserve and everything, down the road as our numbers get bigger and bigger. And really the only thing that could knock us off is something that prevents people from actually doing jiu-jitsu. And I can't say I was very well scienced on pandemics and like what it would mean for us and what it would mean for jiu-jitsu and stuff. Obviously, this is like worst case scenario, really. Something that would happen that, is easily transferable, and we have a sport where we're laying on top of each other and like sweating into each other's mouths, and like, it's like the worst. So, really, like this is worst case scenario. So,
Yeah, it truly is.
one thing, so we'll make it through this, number one. Like what it is, like how difficult it will be for myself or my family or team is yet to be determined. But regardless, we'll make it through this. There's not a scenario where like in a year or 2 years, I'm back in advertising, like banging out strategy decks. Like it's not going to happen. Jiu-jitsu will be back. Tournaments will be back, and we'll be back. So like, whatever that means, is fine. We'll figure it out along the way. So in the meantime, we've been making sure that we sort of double down on everything that was put on the back burner or didn't really get its proper attention because we were so focused on our tournaments. Tournament revenue, which is funds raised, so donations, merchandise sales, registration fees, and spectator fees. It accounts for 90% of our revenue. The other 10% is just like half of our merchandise. We sell about half of all merchandise at tournaments and then the other half online. So really we're left with that half of merchandise online. That's it. And a little bit of fundraising. But, once this all happened, that sort of screeched to a halt, understandably, because we didn't really know what was going to happen with our events. So, I think I tell my team this, and I think of it like, our sort of business model has like the bullseye is the tournaments and everything that's in there. And then we have all these concentric circles that we've never really paid much attention to because that bullseye was such a cash cow for us, it drove so much revenue that we could only pay attention to the tournaments because we had to make sure that they were top quality. We had to make sure. So we didn't think about recurring giving programs, which is a popular thing in nonprofits, which is, people giving on a monthly basis in the same way we subscribe to Netflix or whatever. But, it's that's sort of hard to get off the ground. So I was just focused on tournaments, and the same thing with like getting brand ambassadors. It's something like Breakpoint has done an amazing job with that. We Defy, another nonprofit, has done amazing. Mission 22, and we have thousands, and we've had over 14,000 competitors at our tournaments over these years, and we've never like given them a good way to be an ambassador outside of like fundraising. So during this time, it's like, okay, we can do nothing with tournaments. So what else can we do? Okay, let's get this recurring giving program going now. We set up the site, we figured out our whole like email program, and then I went into our office on a Friday night at 6:00, and I didn't come out till 4 a.m. until I had a video done, which is a video that now lives on the Podium page, weekend.tapcancerout.org/the Podium, and to get people sort of to understand what we're doing with that. And why that is so impactful for us. We got our brand ambassador program off the ground, finally. That's something my wife has totally championed and taken sort of off my plate, but we sort of seeded it with, I think, like 8 original ambassadors, and these are the people that were like hands down the people who have been ambassadoring for us before we actually had ambassadors. So I was like, okay. And most of them I voluntold to be ambassadors. I was like, you're going to be an ambassador. You're going to be an ambassador. You're going to be an ambassador. And then we opened it up for applications, and we had like 125 in the first few hours, and we had to shut it down because there's only 3 of us who can actually like look through these applications and stuff. So we'll open it again next month, but then we just added 20 more. So we did that. We never really did a lot, like focused a lot on like driving online merchandise sales. And we just so happened to have our new rash guard coming out with Half Sumo, which launched today. We have new gis finally that are coming out at the end of this month. They're all black. We haven't had a black gi in a while. But I did other things like little like flash sales. Like I'm in the office, I'm fulfilling orders for the next hour. You place an order, I'm going to throw in a free gift. And I threw in t-shirts, I threw in hoodies, threw in all this stuff I could, and people loved it. And so, we're trying to find different ways to pay attention and focus on the things that we normally don't focus on. And that's only going to make us stronger, because when we finally come back, that bullseye, like the tournament stuff, is going to fill back up again. And, we'll get back. That in full capacity might not be for 3 years, but we'll get there. And once we get there, we still have the recurring giving program supporting us. We have all these new ways to sell merchandise and all this sort of stuff. So we focus a little more on donor relations. We never emailed our donors ever other than a receipt. So now they get 4 emails, one that tells a little bit about us, a little bit about our beneficiary. That sort of just gives them a little more information, because we have donors who don't even realize that they're donating to Tap Cancer Out. They think they're donating to Alex's or whatever other beneficiary we're a partner with. And they'll actually, I have chargebacks all the time. People see Tap Cancer Out on their credit card, don't know what it is, yank the donation back, say that it's fraud or whatever. And I email them, and I'm like, and they're like, I don't even know who Tap Cancer Out is. And I'm like, you remember like your nephew probably did this pajama karate thing a while ago that you donated to? And they're like, oh yeah. I'm like, that's us. So we're just talking to them a little more, we're definitely staying busy. I mean, there's a ton to do. Outside of just the whole like scrambling to reschedule and figure that stuff out. But, figuring out how to drive revenue in other ways, and also, continually thinking about what our tournaments are going to look like when we come back. We've had incredible support. I was a little overwhelmed today, like thinking about it. I've never seen so many orders in the queue for us, and in the ship station queue, which is why I wanted to turn on the live video. I knew it wasn't going to be that interesting to watch me fill mailing packages with stuff, but I couldn't believe it. Like, so many people bought this rash guard and other items and stuff. Like, people want to support us because they can't support us in the traditional tournament way. So they're dying to support us in other ways. So I was like totally humbled. And, it's so, even just something as little as this, like I went to the office for as long as I could today. Dave's going to go tomorrow. Like, just getting out all these orders super fast. Like, we're not Amazon Prime. We don't guarantee like 2-day shipping. Like, we could easily be like, we're a charity, we ship, once a week and what, but no, how about we get them their rash guards immediately before they could pretty much even use them. But just that surprise and delight, like, oh man, I wasn't expecting this to arrive in one day. That's crazy, especially because they know how many orders we got, today and tomorrow. So, just little ways to show that we appreciate them and appreciate all their support. So, yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, again, I only tuned in for about 2 or 3 minutes because
that's probably the longest anybody did. On occasion, I was going over there and like mentioning things, thanking people, like whatever order I just put together, I'd thank that person, and other little things like, don't use these envelopes, they suck. Use these, like things I wish I knew
yeah.
when we were first.
I caught a couple of those, and they were. I mean, just that little bit is great. Like I said, for me. It's I too have had friends and family members lose people to cancer, and it's such an awesome thing that you and your family are doing around Tap Cancer Out and around the tournaments and around the charities. And I think for us in jiu-jitsu world, the one thing I will say, us jiu-jitsu folks, as you probably already know, are a little bit nuts. So I don't think you're going to ever have to worry about filling a tournament.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a very strict feeling that if the world was to open tomorrow and you said, "Hey, this Saturday I'm gonna put a tournament on," I don't know that you'd have too much trouble getting 1,000 people to go put a tournament on.
Yes.
But everything you do is definitely for a good cause. We had a question in the chat box. If
Mhm.
anybody has questions before I let John go, you can drop them in the chat box. My one of my training partners, Charles, has asked, and are you when the world opens back up, when things get back to normal, do you foresee doing anything in the New York City, New Jersey area?
Yes and no. So, and I'm always, some people would answer this question like, "Yeah, man, we're gonna get there someday. I promise you, we'll be there." Whatever. I'll tell you exactly what what goes on with the way how we choose our tournament venues. So, the thing with me, or with Tap Cancer Out, not me, but so it's very important for us at each tournament to get new competitors. People only fundraise once a year, understandably. So if they're fundraising for us, they average value about $450 per fundraiser. So let's say they join us, and this happens a lot because our Connecticut and Massachusetts tournaments are pretty close, but that's just how we started. So if I had hindsight, I might not do it that close, but still, we have a lot of people who will like fundraise for the Connecticut tournament and then drive up and do the Massachusetts tournament. But the second time they pay $70. So, their value starts at 450, and then the second tournament, they're like way down here, which is fine. But so it's important for us every tournament we go to, because we don't host like anywhere near as many events as Naga or Grappling Industries. Like they're doing 70, 80, 90, 100 a year. We're doing, like this year, we were going to do 24, 23 or 24. There's a lot of cities around the U.S., so we're better off spreading them out. So we basically draw a 3-hour radius around our tournaments, and that's sort of how much separation we want between the two, because I need new competitors who have a potential to fundraise. So if we were to host one, so we have one here in Connecticut, New York's like an hour away. So if I do it there, it's going to be all the same people. So we're going to raise, 300,000 at our Connecticut tournament. And then I do one in New York, and I'm really excited because but none of these people fundraise because they already did for the Connecticut tournament. So now we're only raising like $50,000, which is nothing to shake a stick at. But I'd rather be in a city we've never been. So they're getting us once a year, and it becomes their once a year fundraising thing. So like the ceiling gets as high as any other city, because people ask like, why don't you just have like 10 Connecticut tournaments? Like the AZBJJF, the Arizona, Jiu Jitsu Federation, like they literally have a tournament in the same venue every other month, because we just had one in Phoenix and it was super successful. And we had it in January, or at the end of the day, we're going to have theirs in February. But they just rinse and repeat every other month. So like, why don't we do that? Because it's not going to be $300,000 every time. I promise you, it's going to be 300 and then like 50 and then like 40 and like lower and lower. I'm better off going to another city where it can be 300 and 300 and 300 and 300 and build them all up. So New York is a little close. New Jersey was always a possibility, but we're also in Philly. So Philly is about 3 hours from us here as well. So between Connecticut and Philly, like that sort of, those radius sort of covers all of the area. Now, whoever is right where those circles touch, which is probably like somewhere in mid-Jersey, they're annoyed because they have to drive an hour and a half either way. Like either I'm going to Philly an hour and a half away, or I'm going to Connecticut an hour and a half away. I want a tournament that's 10 minutes away. I get it. But that's just sort of the way the cookie crumbles. That said, we started doing our showcase, our sub-only showcase. And right now we attach it to tournaments. So we have it in Connecticut, Massachusetts, Philly, and we're adding one in Austin this year, fingers crossed. It's just easier from sort of economy of scale to have an event while we're having a tournament, so we don't have to double up on venues. And we already have the staff there. We already have the volunteers there. We're already there. Our truck is already there. Our mats are already there. Like everything is there, so we might as well do it. But someday, I'd love to have just a showcase in New York. Like that would be fantastic. Now, do you want to pay for the venue? Because New York venues are
New
freaking
York,
expensive.
yeah.
Yeah, so you got to remember that, like, we need to return a profit here, and it's super expensive to do anything in New York. So, especially if you want to do like a showcase thing that's like high production value or whatever. So we've always tried to. And now New York, I mean, who knows where it's at right now because it's sort of all went quiet once the pandemic stuff hit. But New York was starting crazy regulations on like testing, and it's why they didn't announce the New York Open for quite some time. I mean, usually they announce it in January, and we didn't hear about it for a while because they were dealing with the regulatory issues of New York in like combat sports and having to blood test competitors and things like that. And it's not just New York City; it's the whole state. So if you're having one in Buffalo, you got to deal with it too. So I don't want
Yeah.
to deal with that, man. I'd
No,
rather
man,
go
I hear
somewhere
you.
else.
I've heard, I've heard a couple people who have been trying to put on small tournaments here in New York. The regulations, like
Yeah.
by the commission, and you have to have an ambulance, and you have to have all these like things that are just like insane, and it's almost like running an MMA show in New York. So anyway, John, with that being said, we have another question that just popped up. Um, I think he kind of answered this, but looking ahead for 2021, what new cities will you be going to?
Absolutely zero. So, this obviously ravaged us in our event schedule, and we moved stuff around. Connecticut's not canceled; it's technically rescheduled for August 15th. I mean, fingers crossed we'll be able to host it. It's going to look very different than it originally would have looked. Like we very, very, very likely won't have any spectators allowed at all, among many, many other. Safety, concerns and protocols that we have to put in place. But we've canceled a lot of, so we're not going to be able to go to Colorado. We're not going to be able to go to not Kansas City. Well, probably not Kansas City, but God, I can't even remember. Adam, put in the comment. Jacksonville. No, we rescheduled Jacksonville. My wife's yelling at me. It's Colorado. What else do we cancel in May? Minneapolis. So there are cities that were going to be new to us this year that we can't do this year. So we'll do those next year. But we're basically going to repeat our 2020 schedule in 2021. We're keeping all of our beneficiaries. We would typically get a new sort of set or a new mix, keep some, move on from some others. Everything's going to be the same. Everything's going to be the same in
Awesome.
2021. The venues that we had to cancel for this year, we basically told them keep our deposit. We're going to do the same exact schedule next year. So just hold that date for us next year. So we'll do our
Awesome.
May and June tour. We'll do our fall tour. We'll still have our our one-offs in San Diego, Connecticut, all that sort of stuff. So it's basically going to look like what we wished 2020 would have looked like. I see someone's asking if the Connecticut one is still on. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's still on as of right now. But things change on a daily basis. So we'll see. I know about as much as you do about what's going to happen. So
Yeah, unfortunately, we all do. And being living in the heart of New York City, it's been spastic and crazy with reopening. So
yeah,
we're in New York City, even the travel, guys, we still, as New Yorkers, if you're in New York and watching this from New York City, we still have to quarantine in some states for 14 days. So if
yep,
you want to even go on a vacation, it sucks. You can't really go anywhere.
right.
Um, Anyway, John, with that being said, we're going to close out. I want to say thank you so much for being on my show. This episode will be available in the next week on YouTube for anybody that missed it. I'll link that out
Cool.
and tag you guys in it. Before I let you go, anything you'd like to plug, any closing comments, anything you'd like to say for the audience?
Um, no, man, I appreciate all the support everyone's been showing us. Everything, every sort of um, initiative, I guess, that we've taken during this time, like the podium, our recurring giving program, like the merch that we're selling. It's been the brand ambassadors. It's been met with fierce support, more than I ever expected, and that really means a lot. People are looking for ways to support us when they can't, traditionally with the tournament, and it means a lot for us, as a business, and both myself and my wife this is our full-time job, you know, this is how we have our healthcare and everything. Like this has to work. We can't run out of money. So it means more now than I guess it ever has. Now than I guess it ever has. And we're going to come out of this way stronger than we went in. And we're going to be way better at what we do. And, you know, while obviously 2020 is going to be a huge hit for us in terms of like meeting all of our goals and stuff, and maybe 2021 as well, you know, once things get back to true normal, like I bet our 2022 and 2023 numbers will be way bigger than they would have been if this didn't happen. Because we're just going to be a better organization, better at what we do, and have so much more support in so many different ways. And so that really means a lot to me. I know that people are concerned about us and what's going on, and we're thankful for that. But I do want to, like, while this obviously is not perfect, and you know, we're doing a lot of ducking and juking, we're going to come out of this very, very strong. And it's because of all the people who support us. So, you know, when tournaments come back and think, like, obviously we have to be the last tournament to come back in terms of, like, we can't be seen as the one that's cavalier, and you know, there can't be another tournament that's like, nah, I don't think it's safe to come back, and Tap Cancer's like, yeah, let's freaking roll out. You know,
No
we're a
Dana
health
White.
organization. Yeah, like we're a health organization. You know, we're about health and safety and staying alive and stuff. So we'll be the last one to come back. But, you know, I have all of these tournament organizers, I'm sure, are eager to get back. But I just hope everyone is doing it, you know, safely. When we do come back, we're going to make sure that it's as safe as humanly possible. Nothing is 100%, you know, obviously. But, you know, I'm kind of not excited. I don't know if excited is the word, but you know, it's going to be this is going to make our events a little better in terms of, you know, the stuff like we used to hold tight to the no rash guard rule. I think that's gone forever. Okay, you can always wear a rash guard at our tournaments now. You know, it's just causing us to take a look and be a little inventive on how we host our events to make sure everyone is sort of safe. So we'll be back, man, and I appreciate you having me on and supporting us, and I hope to see everybody soon.
John, thank you so much. And as a slightly rotund guy, I will say I appreciate the rash guard thing. And I will
I hear you.
I hopefully will get to meet you in person at the next tournament in Connecticut.
Indeed.
John, thank you so much for your time tonight. Thank you to your wife, who is another person out
Yeah.
there working working the front lines. Thank you so much for helping, guys. Tap Cancer out. Check them out on Instagram and follow them, guys. It's a great organization. John, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was